Welcome to Road to Redline, the #1 Porsche and car podcast celebrating the people and the stories behind the world's finest sports cars. Road to Redline is presented by YouTuber and magazine editor Lee Sibley, serial owner and columnist Joe Williams, and 993 owner Andy Brooks. Three enthusiasts on a mission to open doors and bring you the best stories, secrets and exclusives from the world of Porsche. Chaps, how are we doing?
Very well. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. Good.
Awesome. We are doing this remotely today again, aren't we? Just for a quick one-off. However, we shall all be together with you at home very soon because we've got a couple of events coming up.
Yep. We can finally name our event because we've named it. It took us a while. We've got the red carpet, and we can also release where we're actually doing that, which is in Weedon at Carnatter, up in Northamptonshire. So 3rd of July. You can reserve your spot. Get onto our Instagram link in the bio, and that will take you through to the Everbright website, so that you can register your spot on that event.
Awesome. So that's our own event. And then we've also got Silverstone Classic at the end of July. And Joe, you'll be able to divulge a little bit more information on that.
Yeah, it can indeed. So we're doing Saturday the 30th, and we've got a Road to Redline club stand lineup. So you just need to book your tickets with the special promo code, which obviously we put out on Instagram, and that gets you entry and parking as part of the Road to Redline crowd.
Would I be right in saying that those tickets are available until the end of this month?
Yeah, so the club stand part of the ticket, they all of those are meant to be bought and signed up by the end of May. So yeah, I think you might better get some in later than that if we really have to, but the general organisation is happening for numbers from the end of May. So yeah, if you can get it done for the end of May, if you want to join us, that would be helpful.
Yes, act quick, then you can be on the Road to Redline club stand, and I have heard on the grapevine you might even be able to get a picture with Andy. Oof.
Ooh.
What? Oof. Only the first 10 though. That's what you said off air, Andy.
It is.
Right, enough prattling around with events, but yes, definitely we look forward to seeing our listeners at both of those events. However, on to the main event of tonight, because boys, it's Pikes Peak, isn't it? This is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, really looking forward to this interview.
Yes, so we have got David Donohue, no less. I think David represents the first Daytona winning driver on Road to Redline. I think it's correct. So yeah, I mean that's awesome. That really is kind of motorsport royalty as far as this podcast is concerned. And we've also got Betim Berisha, who is the proprietor of BBi Autosport. That's LA, isn't it? California.
Yeah, Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach,
yes, exactly that. And I mean, they have been carving out a hell of a name for themselves in street performance cars and motorsport circles for just over a decade now, I think. And
it's got to be arguably one of the better shops there, isn't it? I mean, they're sort of up there with the big brands, aren't they?
Without a doubt. So those guys, it would be Betim's team, with David at the wheel of one of 3 cars competing at Pikes Peak, which is next month. It's end of June. As I say, they're going to be competing across 3 different events in a couple of 911s and a Cayman GT4 as well.
Is it Tanner Faust that's driving the GT4, isn't it?
Yes, it is. David is going to be driving in the top class TA1 Time Attack 1 in a 991 GT2 RS Club Sport, out and out race car, and then there is the 991 Turbo Cup, isn't it? GT3.
Yeah,
Turbo
so
Cup,
GT3 with the turbo kit on it.
Yeah, which is a little bit more of a personal project, I'd say. But yeah, so I mean, Pikes Peak as a discipline, I think especially us Europeans, we're all used to like the merits of endurance racing, and Le Mans obviously only down the road for us. But hill climb is just a complete and utter different discipline. So Betim and David are going to take us into the world of not just hill climbing, but the ultimate hill climb, the race to the clouds, as it's called. and find out everything we need to know about the race next month. So we'd better get them on, haven't we? We are so keen to talk to you guys about Pikes Peak, because I think if you look at some of the biggest races around the planet, obviously everyone knows Le Mans and the Nürburgring, stateside Daytona. David, you know all about Daytona, of course. But Pikes Peak is massive and obviously completely different to kind of circuit racing. So we're really looking forward to this chat with you guys to delve into all of the intricacies behind Pikes Peak, really, especially with a view to the attack on it again next month.
Yeah, it is quite a bit of a unique event compared to all the regular circuit stuff I used to do. When I first agreed to do it, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I said yes because I always say yes because, 90% of the time nothing ever happens anyway. Then I saw a video. But, oh crap! What the hell did I just? All drivers have an ego, and I just couldn't back out of it because I was chicken, So here I am, a couple of years later, and I'm hooked.
I think, David, there's obviously there was a little bit of disappointment last year.
A little.
Well, yeah, I'll be polite, aren't I? We were watching the footage actually earlier on this afternoon on it, and I mean, you must be kind of chomping at the bit to get back there and to kind of put it right, I think, for 2021.
Yeah, the last 2 years have been bittersweet, shall we say? I mean, in 19 we had high hopes with the car, but we kept blowing engines because we were just asking too much from the engine. Betim wasn't involved at the time, so
we were actually competing against each other at the time.
Yeah, we were a different class. Yeah, we were in a different class.
Yeah, but I still had my eye on you guys.
Well, the idea was to get Porsche records in all the classes. So at that point, I already had the record in TA2, which of course Rafi broke it quite handily. And we failed to deliver on that car. And then, of course, last year we could have won it overall. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, we were in a position where we could have won it overall.
This is what this year is for, like you say, particularly for TA1, and we'll get on to talking about the GT2 RS Club Sport shortly. But for you as a driver, David, like you said that you perhaps weren't too sure about the race when you first signed up, and then realised it was kind of too late to back out. But what are the intricacies? What's the appeal of Pikes Peak like as a driver?
It's really pure, is the best way I could describe it. It's you against the mountain. You're up against the competitors, but it's not like they're going to have you off in a corner. So it's really down to you. I mean, I always liked single driver races, and I always liked like one lap qualifying, and this kind of takes that to a whole new extreme. It's sort of like, I don't know, showing up at a track, having no practice, and doing a one lap qualifier in the rain. I mean, that's really what it's like, just about. You have no idea what you're heading into. And I mean, you could have all 4 seasons in one run. And the competitors, for the most part, I mean, they're really wonderful people. There's a lot of camaraderie, especially on the top of the mountain when it's all over. For one thing, you're stuck with each other up there until it's all over. So, but I know last year, I was texting a lot with Clint Vachel, who ended up winning the thing overall. He was on Yokohama tires, and I was on Yokohama tires, and he's a really, really talented driver, but didn't know those tires at all. And I was learning because he didn't know the tires. His feedback was uninhibited. It was really from the seat of his pants. And we learned a lot from each other, and we got him some tires, and we used his feedback to help us. I mean, it was just really that kind of thing. We weren't even on the same section of the mountain, but because we were in different classes, but just texting back and forth when we were down. There's no cell signal on the mountain, but afterwards, we could text back and forth. And it was just a really, really cool program altogether.
For Tim as well. So from the team setup, what's the appeal for you guys with BBi? You first entered Pikes Peak in 2013, wasn't it, in an effort with Jeff Sport? So what's your history with it, really?
Well, it's something special. We, as a group, we just love the challenges. A little bit from the driver's standpoint, I can't even imagine, but from a crew standpoint and the preparation and all this. So you're prepping a car, you have to build like a 24-hour Le Mans car, right? So you're building an endurance car for under 9.5 minutes, and, or in that range. And so you think about everything you've touched. You don't get a second chance. You can't pit stop to repair a car. So you really have to really have to think about everything. Not that you don't in a typical scenario, but you don't have another chance. For example, last year, we could have just repaired or put a new tire on that car and David would have had another, you know what I mean? But you don't get that opportunity. So that's special. The other thing that I like about it is how crazy it is on the crew from not only a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint. So you have the 2 a.m. wake up calls. You get the trucks up the mountain, you unload by 4:30 a.m. You run hard, you test, you try to compile as much information and make as many changes as you can within reason based on driver feedback to get him or her comfortable on the hill. So you have about 5 or 6 chances per day. By 9 a.m., you're already on the way back down the mountain. It went from, negative, I don't know, in Celsius, like negative 10 to, up to 20 C in temperature within a 3-hour period. And then you have the altitude. So on Tuesday, we typically test during the official practice at Devil's Playground, which is 12,000 feet in elevation. And you get out of the truck, you're cold, you're tired, you're a little delirious. You just sat in a nice warm truck up the hill for about an hour. And then you watch the crew guys jump out, and then it hits them, and then they get, then that altitude hits them. They start getting a little bit, and so you're kind of laboring for breath. You're hustling tires, and it's cold, it's dark. You're using headlamps. It's unbelievable. So I've been fortunate enough to go as a technician, be at Le Mans for 2 years in a row. Then I did 8 Daytonas as a crew guy. I did 9 Sebrings. So I've gotten a lot of endurance racing experience, whether it's being with privateer teams or working for Porsche directly. And nothing has captured me like this place when Zort took us there in 2013. And ever since then, I just said, I want to make it a mission to be up on that hill as much as possible and compete at a serious level with, because it's nice. A privateer team like us can go rub elbows with some of the factory teams. Even if we're not in the same class, it's still, you see that, and you could still pull up in a U-Haul van or a box van with an open trailer with a serious weapon and a good driver and actually do real well there. It feels like in North America, it feels almost like the last frontier, kind of like you have the Baja 1000, you have the Salt Flats, for top speed stuff, where privateers can go set records, and you don't need the big trucks and the trailers and all that goes with it. So it's, as David said, it's very pure, from a crew standpoint. And then from a technical standpoint, you have a few things working against you. You have the altitude, which obviously the horsepower limitations, but then what kind of it was just slapped me in the face is you have a lot less aerodynamic the cars are less less aerodynamic downforce because of the thinner air, less dense atmosphere. So then you have that. Then you have, when you have less dense air, now you're pulling less heat out of the car. So you're working turbos harder. You're trying to make absolute manifold pressure, hit those targets, but then turbos are just turned into the big old heat pumps. And now you have to try to leach that air out with thin atmosphere. So there's a lot of cool challenges. Then you have the cold temperatures with the tires, trying to keep heating those. And then you have a driver who is trying to piece it all together. Yeah. You have a driver who's trying to piece it all together and then make sense of all of those aspects. The crew guys and girls are sitting there trying to make the most sense. So by the time he gets back down in 4.5 minutes, you've already have the change in place, and you're trying to get the changes done on the car while the tires are still hot, get them back out in line. So very, very unique challenges, but I love them. It's so much fun when you're there. And I don't care what video you guys have seen or anything like that. If you haven't been there, the sheer scale of this place is unreal. I keep trying to look for videos, like, when I'm telling my wife, I mean, she's been there now, but when we were there in 2013, I kept trying to show her, oh yeah, that's the peak way up there. And it doesn't, she's like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's a mountain. Awesome. But then when you're down there on the starting line and you're looking up as the sun's coming up and you're looking way off in the distance, and you see this barren peak you're looking at like a mountain on Mars because no tree line, it's above the tree line, and you see a tiny little light and you're like, holy crap, that's where they're going.
My God.
To do that under 10 minutes. It's insane. So it's just incredible to the senses, and every sense of the word, for, you know, from a human standpoint, let alone a technical standpoint on the car. But like I said, I can't even imagine being in a driver's seat, having to perform under those conditions with the finite amount of testing you have, and trying to piece all that information together. So what I think we try to pride ourselves on is giving a driver a car that they can give us small bits of feedback that make big differences. So we're in the window when we show up, because, you know, you only have 100% of bandwidth, right? Let's say you have it's like a tire. You can only use 100% of that tire. If you're full throttle and you're at the limit of adhesion and you start to turn, you either have to let off the gas or you're going to go sliding, right? So the driver has to use all of that bandwidth to piece the hill climb together, all the corners, all the brake zones, everything, decreasing radiuses on a corner that looks like it opens up on the last one, you know? So if you take that bandwidth and you take away from that 25%, oh, the chassis is bad or this or that, you know, that it's in their head. So they're not allowed to use that bandwidth at the fullest capacity. So us as a group and a team do everything we can to absolutely let the driver utilize as much of that bandwidth on his job, her job, you know, being safe and getting up that hill.
Yeah. I have to say, Betim, it's great to see how much passion you've got for this. So you can literally, you can feel like Pikes Peak coursing through your veins. But
can I ask a question? I want to know, what took you there in 2013? What made you go, right, this is my year, this is when I'm going to start doing it? And I guess that's a question to both of you, really.
Well, for me, we were commissioned by a gentleman named Jeff Zwart, who's a heavy hitter in the Porsche world from the Pikes Peak hill climb. He's a photographer as well that Porsche has used since the 80s. Iconic photographer and commercial filmmaker. But he's been competing there since the early 90s. And, you know, I've had posters of him, even when I was cleaning, you know, sweeping floors at a shop in Washington State. When I first started doing this, there was a poster of him in a 993 turbo sliding around a corner, and it was signed by him. And I was like, a Porsche on dirt is amazing, you know? And so, I mean, that was 20 years ago when I first saw that poster. And then, you know, I started BBi with a few of my friends. And shortly after that, maybe 3 or 4 years after that, here comes Jeff Zwart walking into our shop saying, hey, I like what you guys are doing with these crazy 911s. Let's put a car together. I drove a GT2 RS, the 997 variant GT2 RS there with the turbos. And then the year before that, I drove a cup car. He goes, if I can mix the nimble, lightweight, and suspension geometry of the cup with the engine of the turbo, I think we have something there. So we put the car together, built with one of our, actually a 996 turbo street engine. We dumped into a cup car and warmed it up and made about 800 horsepower. So we tuned it back down, and it ended up being a lot of fun because we were able to have a scenario that he could really rip it in the corners and have enough power in the W's to carry him through it. I think that when we went there in 2018, that really is what kind of spawned the whole, okay, this is a good fit for us. Big horsepower, good handling cars, and then wacky downforce. And then I was hooked from there. And then I think we got third place that year in TA1. 2014, we learned a little bit, got second place. And then 2015, he ended up getting first place in class. So after that, we ended up taking a hiatus. And I ended up buying a 991 Cup with the hopes of maybe I'll go drive there, you know, and build a car for myself. And then got married, had a kid. Mama said, She said, put somebody faster.
No cliff jumping for you, boy.
She said, that's good and fine, but what you're going to do is you'll build a car, but put somebody else in there that's faster than you.
That's funny. So, mine just said get insurance.
well, David, we weren't married as long, all right? So now if you ask her, she'd be like, yes, get insurance. I was still new and neat back then. Now I'm just, just me.
So what took you there, David?
Well, like I said, I befriended the the folks at Porsche Colorado Springs and Joe Brenner and Don Hicks, and it's in their backyard.
Yeah.
So it's part of Porsche Colorado Springs is just a bunch of motorheads anyway. So they just get attracted to it. And a guy by the name of Fred Veach is a good customer of theirs, and he's like everyone's dad on the mountain. And again, they just asked me, and I said, yeah. I mean, they asked with such enthusiasm, you can't say no. And of course, then I saw a video, and I'm like, oh crap! What? How am I going to learn this? It's not like close to my house, by the way. I'm on the other. I'm a good 4-hour plane ride.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. It's a totally different experience, isn't it, for both driver and team? Because unlike say endurance racing, which again, David, you'll far more about than we will. But it's say time management, tactics over different stints and periods of time and whatnot. With hill climbs, you've got short bursts of extremely high intensity. Then added to that in terms of, say, Pikes Peak as the race to the clouds versus any other kind of generic hill climb that, say, we have here, like Goodwood, for example. You add in, as Betim was saying, the changes in altitude and temperatures and whatnot. And then on top of all that, I know it's all tarmac now, but it was gravel. And then year by year, they're just adding more and more tarmac bits. So when you think you're learning the climb, they're then changing it. And I just think wow, I just think to be competitive in that sort of discipline, outrageous, and genuinely, it fascinates me as a spectator.
I kind of wonder if I never did it where it was gravel, but I would imagine it's a bit more consistent between practice and the race and so forth when it was not all asphalt, because now we have tires that work in a certain temperature range, but it's really, really hard, if not impossible, to get the tires into that operating temperature range. And if you're practicing like the top section, you're starting at 12,000 feet, going to 14,000 feet. You cross the finish line of pavement and go on to moist dirt. So if you happen to get your tires up to temperature, it's sort of like boiling water in a glass, pouring the hot water out and pouring cold water in.
Yeah.
The tire's not going to like that very much when you go on moist dirt all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And you could have, this is something we learned last year, is you could have hardly any miles on a car and just kill your tires by not managing the heat correctly. And I was really fortunate last year because we got the car. The dealership I was working for here in Pennsylvania bought the car, Porsche the main line, and they're like, good, go do the race. Like, that's not all you need. And we were really lucky that Betim wanted to join our program because we really didn't have a program, and he came to my aid in a big way. We had Yokohama, which they've been incredible support every year. But just to give you an idea of the impact of the crew, I think I ran the car at a local racetrack called High Plains Speedway or High Plains Raceway, and maybe for an hour or two. It's not a whole lot of runs, just trying to learn, where do we fill up the water for the sprayers, and checking the oil and figuring out the systems and the alarms and so forth. And then we went on the mountain and we tested the top section in the beginning, which is really bumpy because it's part permafrost. So when the sun hits the pavement and the ground underneath is still frozen, it creates these huge waves, and you'll see it in pictures that are sort of low level to the horizon line. And the car was just all over the place, and I literally was scared. Like, I can't believe I was excited to come do this. Now I'm out here for a month, and I got to do this all month. I mean, it's only a matter of time before I bounce off the edge.
Shit.
And Betim and Jeremy, his chassis guy, that was on a Friday. Jeremy was with me for all those days, but we didn't touch anything on the car. We didn't have any parts. In fact, we were late to go test at High Plains because we didn't have the wheels to put on the car and the lug nuts, because that all came with the spares package. So once we got all that stuff and did that one day, Jeremy and Betim spent the entire day from first thing in the morning till after dinner the next day, just stringing it, aligning it, corner weighting it. Going through it with a fine tooth comb. I think they had another guy helping you there. And it was a good 12-hour day for them, 14-hour day. And on the same section, it was not only just fun to drive all of a sudden, instead of, trying to kill me, we were 10 seconds in that section faster.
Wow, yeah. Okay.
It was just huge, and it was fun. It's like, this is why I wanted to do it.
What did you do, Tim? Sorry.
Well, so
he could tell you, but then you'd have to kill you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it really is. It's a big thing up there because you don't get to practice. So, like some of the in-car camera that I have, I don't particularly want to share because I spent a lot of time and effort and money learning how to do the mountain.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not particularly interested in just handing that over to someone so they can come from, some far off land and learn it in a weekend.
Yeah. I don't think being a YouTube sensation is high on your, list of needs.
Not really.
Right.
But it comes down to intellectual property, right? And that's what Tim brought to the table, was this incredible intellectual property that put us from, a car that was really scary. It was still competitive, but really scary, to something that was truly spectacular and fun.
Yeah, that whole deal, how that came about is we had to withdraw our entry with Lucy is our car here because we got voted off the island and we weren't allowed to ride in that car in Time Attack 1 anymore. And so when I withdrew that entry, I was bummed, kicking the can down the road, and then heard about David's program and we jumped all over it. So we had the team, we could mobilize. We've never been with the 2RS Club Sport before, so we have zero experience with that car. So Jeremy flew out early with David, as he said, to High Plains, gathering information. I was on the other side of the country at the time for another engagement that I had. And then I came back in that Saturday with Jeremy. Jeremy gathered all that information with David that Friday, when basically Jeremy's like, we got to change everything. And so he's like, David is not thrilled with the car. It's competitive, but it's still not something that we should turn him loose in. So that's when we went through, dialed the setup in, took all the knowledge we've learned over the years at Pikes Peak and what to do with the cars. Luckily, the 2RS took well to our changes and gave it back to David and said, try that. And so he came. I remember it was actually very validating because he came back down the hill with a smile on his face and shaking his head. I could see it through the windshield when I was stopping him, because Jeremy and I are both nervous, no communication with him, and so he's like, okay, I think you guys gave me something to work with here. Let's get to work.
Nice.
So
amazing.
And that's how we forged our wonderful relationship with David.
I'm curious to explore. Sorry, but Tim, I'm curious to explore the because obviously you're competing on 3 classes this year.
Yeah.
So the GT2 RS Club Sport is obviously delivered from the factory as a race car. The GT3 Turbo Cup is essentially a cup car where you have turbocharged the engine, essentially.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Fine.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. And then the GT4 Club Sport, again, that just there's a little extra something in the mix there, isn't it? So I like the diversity of your lineup. Yeah,
and I did last year. With David, we already, even throughout the week, we were already saying, all right, well, what we're going to do next year with a little bit more time, and we gathered all those thoughts. And then obviously, I really wanted to take the Turbo Cup back out in the open class. So we're retooling that car as we speak.
Awesome.
And then the Yokohama GT4, the trophy series car, that kind of came about us last minute. And Porsche Motorsport actually called us and asked us to field this car to make sure everything runs right. It's a very low, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have to do a whole lot to the car because the rules say you can't do a lot to the car.
Yeah.
All we can do is change the dampers, which we're doing. We're putting JRZ dampers on that car, and that's it. Put a good setup on it. I'll have 2 crew guys on that. And then it's, we're already at the mountain. Porsche Colorado Spring is kind enough to give us a home for a month out there in Colorado. So we have a home base, we have trucks, we have trailers. So it kind of made sense. And then I started looking at it. Well, then if we do this, then we have a whole team, and now I have to approach this differently. You know, I've got David in TA1, which is a very, very important class for us. And him and Jeremy are obviously going to work very closely on that program with 2 other guys. And then I'll have myself heading up Lucy, and that's the Turbo Cup in open class. So we're retooling that car to, bigger turbos, more downforce, wider tires. We learned, you just need more of everything. Yeah. More grip, more braking, more downforce.
The American way, bigger is better.
Yeah. But hey, bigger is better, I guess, up there. And so we have stiff competition in both those classes. In the GT4 class, that's a mixed bag of wildly talented people and beginners, because I think that's a brilliant class as a feeder class. You're in a NA car, so the atmosphere, it's going to be, the car has asthma up there. It's just going to be wheezing for air. So you're not, and then you have it under the rule of and control of Jeff Zwart. So he's your coach the whole time, and he's
coaching all the drivers up.
Everybody. Yeah. So it's almost like a team effort. It's really cool to watch. It's actually something that I would really bucket list like to do, because being competitive is one thing, but being there and in a kind of a lower stress environment, meaning that you guys are kind of together. It's almost like a group activity that you're bouncing stuff off of each other. Obviously you're competitive and you say, I want to win, but the learning curve is so steep, and the way Jeff does it, it really takes that manic, oh my God, the turning point. It calms everybody down. It says, okay, just work on this section for now. Then we're going to go here. And then after we're done, we're going to go get breakfast. Then we're going to get the minivan. We're going to go up the hill. We're going to park on corners. We're going to talk about sections, and it's a pretty neat week-long experience that I would invite anybody to do that if they want to get their feet wet at Pikes Peak.
Jeff's quite an amazing man, isn't he? And he brings that calmness to everything.
Yeah, he's incredible. And, we were widely lucky that he paved the road for us at Pikes Peak. There's more than building a car and going up there. You have, simple things. Where do you go buy fuel? Where do you this? Where do you that? He kind of had all that stuff lined up. So he immersed us in this environment in a very controlled manner, and we're just taking notes the whole time. And then when it came for us to stop playing house and run our own car, we were kind of kicked off with a lot of good experience that he bestowed on us. So that we were very fortunate there, and it that helped pave the road for us to go and be a competitive team at the mountain. But yeah, back to David's car. That's nicknamed Sunny. We're giving him everything he had last year plus some as well. We took notes the whole time. He's an incredible driver with amazing feedback. I've never been able to work with him and Jeremy, or work with a driver and Jeremy myself together and make such concise, just very thought out changes that were effective. That not only did he give us the feedback, oh, well, that's not so good. We were actually in that car, like on the hump. With 2 clicks this way is too much. 2 clicks this way was not enough. So and in a short time frame. So we learned what he needs out of that car. We have the time. The car's been at BBi all year long now, and we've just been tweaking on it, and we're slowly building this thing up to be competitive in that class, because you got Romain Dumas coming in the Champion Motorsport GT2 RS Club Sport with some serious F1 aero under that car. You have Bentley coming, as you guys better not be cheering for, but
we won't.
We're on your side. We're on your side.
Yeah. Okay, good. And that team and Reese Millen, who's also a mountain goat over there, just they know what they're doing. So there's some good competition, but in all honesty, competition is a small fraction of your success at that place. The mountain decides. There's so many changing dynamic parts of that whole experience of that event that it's that camaraderie that David was talking about. It's kind of because everybody's like, God, we're here together to challenge this mountain, and hopefully she allows us to the top. And yeah, the attrition rate there is massive, to get the cars to behave and do what you can, and then not making a mistake. So that's insane to me. So I don't, driving that place to me is a mind-boggling deal. And I love driving cars. I've been well over 200 miles an hour and a dozen 911s. I've driven a 1600 horsepower 911. There's just that's a whole different game that takes a special type of crazy to do.
Tim, I'm curious to ask what you talk about the bar of entry to Pikes Peak. What does it look like if somebody knocked on your door tomorrow and said, "I want to run at Pikes Peak"? Yeah, what does that look like, and is that something somebody could do?
Yes, it is, but I won't be a part of a program unless there's a lot of responsibility behind it, or the driver themselves are vetted out and prepared to do this, because it's a both feet in deal. I mean, I shut down my shop to make sure that these cars are prepped, which I have 14 employees here, and all hands on deck to make sure that we're there. So if somebody were to come to BBi and say, "Hey, I want to do this. I don't have the experience at that mountain. I'm a seasoned driver," I would say GT4 class. I would say your first year, let's go. Get familiar with that hill. Get familiar with the environment. Get familiar with living at Pikes Peak or in Colorado for half a month. Those are the things that I don't know that people prepare themselves for.
Yeah. Can I just interject there? I've got a bit of a story about Colorado, just to give the listeners some idea on the altitude. Because I've been there quite a few times. I've got a friend that lives out there, and just I used to smoke like many years ago, and when you go there and have a smoke up at the mountain, we were up at Winter Park, your cigarette would probably last about 4 or 5 times longer than it would last here in the UK, literally because of the altitude. And I'm sure a lot of people won't realise that, but that's what when you're trying to breathe, that gives you then an idea of the difference in the breathability of the air. I just thought I'd give that. You can go back.
No, that's a good way to have a look at that, because you're absolutely right. It's an air fuel mixture, right? Your fuel's the cigarette, and the air, if it's not there to burn it, and your lungs can't take it in, there it is. So yeah, I would, I'd absolutely say we'd sign you up in the GT4 class. You'd either buy or rent a car, figure it out. But I would almost. I wouldn't want to. I don't care how much money somebody has or whatever. If you don't have the experience, I wouldn't want to be a part of that program, because it's irresponsible.
It's almost like climbing a mountain type training, by the sounds of it, before you even get behind the wheel. It's you're dealing with so many different aspects. Yeah.
There's just so many elements to that you just don't think about until you experience it, and then they hit you. Every one of them hit you and T-bone you in the intersection until you can start dodging things and say, "Oh, okay, I'm prepared for this, prepared for this, prepared for this." But then you'll always get hit with something. There's always something that will surprise you, that will remind you what you're doing.
Do you have oxygen in the car? You're allowed that?
Yes. You are allowed that. It's an option for drivers.
Right. Do you take that?
Good.
Do you have it?
I didn't last year. Maybe I should. You got nothing to lose. It doesn't weigh much. So.
What's I think obviously you're taking on some real kind of big players, especially like this year. But fastest ever Porsche at Pikes Peak, for example, would it be fair to kind of describe BBi as an enterprise, as sort of like the Manti racing of North America, really? Because I mean,
you're making me blush.
Yeah, well, you're just and obviously they these days are sitting ever closer now to Porsche Motorsport, aren't they? And obviously teaming up, particularly going forward. So, in terms of BBi as a business, is that kind of the sort of road that you would like to go down for North America, Betim, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been a dream of mine to. Ever since I worked for Porsche Motorsport North America, so I was very fortunate to be immersed in that program. Actually, that's how David and I really first met. But he knew who I was, but I worked on his Daytona prototype program when back in my past life. But to go back to that, yes, I would love to be something along those lines as a Manti. I really look up to that company and what they've done and how they've done it. There's wildly talented shops like BBi here in North America that could easily fill those roles. I think we're fortunate enough to have just a powerhouse of staff here and team that every single person here is just wildly talented at whatever they do. And that's what's, I think, a massive key to our past successes and the vision of where we're going. But to answer your question, I'd love to be, rubbing elbows with a Manti, or even in the same conversation like this. It is very flattering to even have our name in that same conversation.
Absolutely awesome.
But,
how have you built that team? How long has that taken to find those people, and how have those relationships joined over the years?
It's taken a lot of time. I started BBi in the summer of 2000. Well, I say 5, but it's actually summer of 2006 is when we kind of really made our first BBi sticker, and it was kind of official.
Yeah.
I did it as a side project in a small little storage unit when I was working for Porsche still. And now fast forward, it's taken about 10 years of just us figuring ourselves out to even responsibly ask the right staff aboard. We were waffling around. We early on, it was hard to find our identity where we were. All I knew is we loved horsepower and grip in 911. So we wanted to mess with them. And as soon as I think we went to Pikes Peak back in 2013, it started to kind of validate our brand a little bit, and it started to show that, hey, if we do kind of get our act together, we can do something here and really live out our dream of being a Porsche tuning shop that's sustainable with a great team and something that possibly I can pass down to my son, and all the other people like Jared, our engine builder and calibrator, who's on the dyno right now. That's a whole nother story, but he's been with me for 12 years. Amy in the other room has been running the company for me for 12 years also. So I've got a lot of people who've been with me from the beginning, the thick, the thin, the ugly. And we've grown together. And I think that bond, when we bring somebody in, they're part of a family now, and we have an ethos and a direction in how we treat everybody, how we work together, the communication, the morning meetings. It's a very open door mentality here, which sometimes looks a little lax from the outside, but I tell you what, I couldn't imagine having a better team right now, and we're hopefully still trying to grow that and bring more on. But that's a long-winded way of saying it takes almost 15 years to.
Yeah. It sounds like you've all got each other's backs. That's for sure.
That's the biggest thing. Have your teammates' backs, and that's our mantra here.
Yeah.
I'm curious to ask about the crossover. When you're running sort of these big open class cars, there's some serious kit that obviously you developed on those cars. How much of that crosses over into sort of customers' cars? When someone knocks on your door and says, I want all the bells and whistles. How much of that do you end up sort of taking and offering back to your sort of your regular customer?
How about this for a little bit of an answer? Betim was late last year to come to Pikes Peak because. Were you in Kansas or something?
I was in Kansas.
I don't know that I've ever been to Kansas, but he's running his old GT2 on the runway, doing over 200 miles an hour and a half mile with a manual gearbox.
Yeah. That's the equivalent of. If I can imagine what it's like to grab a tiger by the tail.
Awesome. And what's really amazing, if you look it up on YouTube, is and I've been in race cars that go 200 miles an hour, and you watch the speedometer when you get up to like 190. You get up to 180 pretty quick. 190 takes a little while. Every mile an hour over 190, it's like tick, tick, tick. Well, you watch his speedometer. And it's still skipping numbers. It's still going so fast at 200 miles an hour. It's like, holy moly, that's crazy.
Yeah, we ended up doing 208 there, and every time, by the time I chopped the throttle, the car, its velocity is like 215, 218, 221 once. It's like, and it's pulling about a half a G in sixth gear. Yeah. And I'm getting 13% tire slip after 180 miles an hour when we go full boost.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's just continuing to I mean, it's just trying to tear itself apart, and it's the most incredible feeling. And when you watch the video, it looks like nothing's happening. It just sounds like a normal car rolling through the gears. But like when you're in there, and you can literally, I'm not BSing you. You can feel your spine pressed against the carbon through the seat, pressed against the carbon between shifts, and it's another thing like Pikes Peak. You cannot explain it unless you're there in it, feeling it. So. Yeah.
So if you want that in your road car, call Betim.
Yes. A manual as well. That is absolutely nails. So fair play.
And that's the fun part, rolling through the gears. But to
slowly,
go back, a lot of that does translate over. Well, and you know what? It goes back and forth. What we learn and some of those wild street builds or the half mile cars, I bring that back to the competition side of things. Like, for example. The engine in our open class car is the same exact spec that I'd build you if you wanted a 9,000 RPM turbo engine for your street car or for your track car.
Awesome.
We just open up.
Did you say 9,000 RPM turbo car?
Yeah. Lucy spins to about 9,300 if you needed to.
Oh my word!
It's the best of all worlds, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
A very broad torque band and all the RPM you could ask for, but for example, the GT2RS Club Sport has it's a street car engine, right? So we've learned a lot with these street engines. So we're applying what we've learned over back to Pikes Peak, and the communication goes both ways. So
two-way street.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you guys will release what these cars look like as we get closer to the mountain time, and that kit that we're putting on these cars, I'll make available. If some maniac wants to do a street car like this, I'll do it, But we do, I mean, we're learning this year we've gone to school. We've learned so much about aerodynamics and what truly works, what actually doesn't work that you think did, simplifying everything, and just being a very, very, very attached to just results. And that's, if it doesn't add to the value of the program or the team, it's gone. And so
have you been doing wind tunnel testing to verify
everything we've done has been through CFD. Nothing has been applied practically yet, and we'll go validate that at the track at sea level, and then reapply that and see what we learn on the mountain.
Excellent. Is that done in-house, the CFD?
No. So we have two partners. We use AeroSim here in California, and we use Virus out in the Northeast. And so all of the design work, all of the layouts, everything happens here between Dimitri, myself, and Jeremy. And then it goes to them for validation. And now we're in the process of making everything. And what that's doing is we're actually 3D printing all of the fit molds for the aerodynamic components. So 3D print them, machine them, and then lay the carbon up. We'll have a video coming out pretty soon, getting kind of in depth, giving away all of the secrets that David doesn't want us to. And it's quite amazing the amount of effort and energy that our outside partners and vendors are putting into this as well.
Yeah. You're getting quite a name for 3D printed parts now, aren't you?
We love it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So you come up with a cool idea and you want to make it. We're a smaller privateer shop, so we can't go and invest massive amounts of money in fixturing and tooling and molds. So 3D printing kind of where the awesome ideas meet reality. I call that the valley of death, right? So it smooths that right over. Yeah.
Yeah. I use it a lot at work as well. A small manufacturing company. Awesome. And we make lots of tooling fixtures using 3D printed parts. It's just brilliant.
It's awesome. I mean, especially if your volumes aren't, massive, right? It's great.
Yeah. Excellent.
I'm excited about that technology to keep growing and becoming more available.
I think just like in regards to the crossover, if you like, between like what you guys are developing for motorsport purposes and how that transcends into road cars. and products for road cars. I mean, that's very kind of in keeping with Porsche's mantra anyway, which is great that you guys seem to be an extension of that, because as we know, Porsche is an engineering company and it has always lived by the whole win on Sunday, sell on Monday kind of ideology. And, it's not necessarily that somebody's going to come along and say, I need the exact spec car that David's got because I really want to turn the notch up on my weekends. But, I think,
Right.
I think that's the whole point, isn't it? It's development of road cars and road technology through motorsport. It is literally the mantra by what Porsche lives off now. And I just think it's great to see a privateer team like doing that and doing it so bloody well,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the translation of what we learned, like Andy talked earlier, the two-way road is it's very prevalent. It's symbiotic. We need both, right? In order for us to continue to kind of step our level up. And these cars are getting so good. Like the 992 turbo, the 992, even the Carrera S is unbelievable. It's easy to ruin these cars. It's easy to make them slower on track. It's back in the 996 days, you could sneeze on it and make 100 more horsepower easily. Now you put an exhaust on a GT2 RS and 9 out of 10 times you're going to lose horsepower.
Wow. Okay.
It's pretty wild. I mean, I've got a scrap bin so big of titanium that we've scrapped on the dyno with the GT2 before we finally developed it, that it's making it harder and harder for companies like us to find where Porsche is leaving a little extra, because it used to be like this. Now it's getting here,
Yeah.
And then you couple that with the EV space growing heavily. So companies like me, what are we going to do? It's an interesting time right now, and it's exciting, so it's really making us level up and really put a lot of thought into how we approach these projects nowadays.
Where's the current focus on advancing things? So because I always think there's only so far you can go with an engine in terms of taking more power out of it. Is the focus now more on the aero side of things as opposed to power, or is it a bit of everything?
It's a bit of everything. We've focused a lot on suspension because there's still a lot you can do there, and suspension, to me, the dampers, the springs, the sway bars are wildly interesting, because you can change and transform a car just by understanding a little bit about what's currently happening.
Change it from a wild ride to a smiley ride, as David said earlier.
We need more smiles per mile.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. And so the engine, we're still there, right? But we just took a Taycan in, and messing with that, we put a set of lighter weight wheels on it and lowered it. And what am I hoping for? A little more, a cooler look and a little bit more range. I don't know, so but I'm wildly interested in that space. But maybe it's a different company. We start as a sister company to BBi, but I'm looking at the EV space pretty actively, seeing what's out there. And we're doing a pretty cool little 912 that will be out next year, EV conversion, but not the traditional slap Tesla drivetrain. And this thing is going to be nutty.
Awesome.
Sweet. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We like
It's funny because we were just talking about big power, and we start talking about suspension. It's really the drive experience, right? You have all this power, but on the street, where are you ever going to use it?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I had a friend's track car. He wanted me to shake it down on the street. I couldn't get out of first gear, really to get any kind of feel out of it. And
Right.
It really comes down to what does that person want, and is it what kind of drive experience? I mean, why else would you have an H pattern gearbox anymore? Well, it's for the experience. Right. People want to drive for the experience. Yep. Some people don't, but everyone's got their own.
No, you're absolutely
own favorite
right,
flavor.
That's the biggest thing that you with the PDK gearboxes and this and that. It's all out speed is one thing, but David coined it is really developing and elevating that experience for the particular person. I've got a 81 SC that is one of my favorite cars to drive. It's a beater. My dog gets in it. We have a blast. I drive it everywhere. But a mom in a minivan could roast me off the line. It's like, wait, but it's one of those things that David's absolutely right. Sometimes all out speed and numbers, I know that's what sells and that's what everybody says that they want, but in all honesty, they really just want a better experience. And how you arrive there is objective, right? But that's it.
You look at the brake pad on that 81 SC. I mean,
no, yeah, it's a size, it's like a quarter.
Like that big. But they're so fun to drive.
It's about this big.
Yeah. But they were truly fun to drive. And I remember I did I coached some people years ago, and I drove this guy stripped out. It was a mid 80s G body 911, no ABS, no traction control. I mean, it had a tuned up engine, but it was really lightweight. And it was so visceral. It was so much fun compared to, I had been in prototypes for so long. And that thing, it's just hanging on for dear life. I'm not going particularly fast, but man, you're hanging on for dear life.
Well, we're big advocates of that on this podcast. We've spoken before about, for motor racing, you need clinical machinery, hence why, even the GT3 RS is PDK only now with the GT department's road cars. But in terms of having fun, like you say, just good old stick shift, isn't it? And just go off and have fun, especially for road cars as well, and it's not about all the power. It's just about a nice power to weight ratio, sew the corners together and have a bit of fun. But it's different strokes for different folks. And I think, again, that's where Porsche does so well, because it offers something for everybody,
Yep, absolutely. A very dynamic, wide range there,
Definitely.
The big difference for you is you guys can shift with your left hand. I can't do that to save my life. I'm working for a company called Audrey Motorsport. We're doing an event at the Goodwood members meeting, and they're talking about going on the Goodwood circuit with classic manual cars.
Oh, nice.
I know that's such a good idea with Americans. They can drive manual. They may all be able to drive manual, but geez, I'm useless with my left hand.
To be fair, I think maybe 2015 or 2016, I'd been over to California. I hopped off a plane. I went straight to the Sharkworks garage. We were doing something with Alex's 4.1 RS. He's like, before you do anything, just take up and down the road. You've got to just, get in this thing and have fun. And I definitely missed a few gears. It was all over. And I was like, oh, it's the jet lag. And I was like, this is just all weird. The steering wheel's over there when it should be here. So yeah, I'm pleased as a pro driver, you have some empathy for that anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, I was looking at Reese Millen's car, and he's on what you guys would consider the proper side, in the Bentley. And then I tried driving a drift car that was right-hand drive, and that was my left hand just doesn't work like that.
It's funny. It's funny how you're used to one thing. There's a few left hookers over here, and if we drive them for road tests and whatnot, you have to concentrate because your mind sits on the road where you would in a right-hand drive car. So when you're on the left, you have to make sure you're not just wandering over into the middle of the road. So, yeah.
I remember when I was racing, our seats were on the right side, and I had a relatively new teammate, and I was behind him for a long time because I was just waiting for him to make a mistake because he kept going a little bit far to the left before he turned in, a little bit far to the left. Finally, he had two wheels in the grass. He turned in, and it did not turn in. And I finally got the position. He went off into the weeds. It was so predictable.
David, I've got to talk to you about Daytona because it's on my bucket list just to go and watch the race. Obviously you've won it, which is an absolutely outstanding experience. I know Nick Tandy, and he's told me that when he won Daytona, he was given a very nice watch by the organisers. I hope they were doing that in 2009 as well, by the way. But surely is that? There we go. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. I spied it, but I thought okay. But no, that's very kind. But yeah, surely, is that the pinnacle of a racing driver's career, particularly for an American?
It's up there for sure. I also won Le Mans in class, and I felt more ownership in the Daytona win for sure. It was such a team effort. We had 4 drivers in the car, and Norbert Singer was very quick that night to note that all four of us had a green lap average that were within 0.3 of a second. Every crew member did just a little bit more than they were supposed to the entire race long. And it's that sort of, it's that stuff that makes it more valuable to me, that you're part of something bigger and part of a team. And you know, from an ego standpoint, you're the one that brought it home, so to speak. But you didn't. Everybody brought it home. And any one person could lose the whole thing. No one person can win it. And it's hard for most people to understand that, because all they see is the car on a track with one driver. But the amount of thousands of hours that go into a car just to get it there, and Betim will tell you with the Pikes Peak car, the amount of hours that are going into it for a 9.5 minute run, it's mind boggling. But it's, you know, at the end of it, it's hopefully we're on the top, and, you know, it's all worth it.
Well, this is it. And as we've kind of discovered in this podcast, it really is a completely different discipline. So we really wish the best of luck to you and Betim and the whole team, including the other two drivers as well in the other two classes. We'll be rooting for you despite the Bentley appearance. So.
Awesome.
I think before we do wrap things up, we always we've got 10 questions we ask at the end of our Road to Redline podcast. Which kind of we work out your Porsche flavors from it. They're quick fire questions. Maybe, Betim, if you wouldn't mind going first, and then we'll ask the same 10 questions to David.
All right.
Andy, I think you've got the questions, if you're not.
I have indeed.
Awesome.
I shall reel them out if you're ready, Betim.
I'm ready.
Okay. First question: air or water?
Air.
What is your favorite Porsche model?
Ever? The 959 prototype that GT, what was it? I think a Group B car that they had in the museum.
Okay, yeah, awesome. I love how precise that is as well. The exact car. Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Your favorite Porsche color?
You're gonna hate me, but it's black. I love a black 911.
Awesome.
I'm simple. I'm a simple man.
We've not had that answer before. It has to be said.
Who is
But
your?
I did just see the black olive on the 992 GT3.
Yeah.
That
looks
to me,
good.
that does look pretty nice. But yeah, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, black olive. It's a good color. I'll take that. Who is your ultimate Porsche icon?
Roland Kuzma.
Nice.
Ooh.
What is your favorite track?
Or hill climb.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Obviously Pikes Peak, but I love driving Laguna Seca.
Okay. To Fuchs or not to Fuchs?
Not.
Do you stock or do you hot rod?
Hot rod.
Narrow or wide body?
I love a narrow body.
Cars and coffee or a track day?
Obviously track day.
And lastly, do you do back seats in a 911?
Every time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I thought you'd say bit him off too much weight, but yeah, he's made me things anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, good. That was really good. Yeah, David, we'll shoot for you then, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, I'll hit it quick. Air or water?
Air.
Favorite Porsche model?
Race car, road car.
Either.
Whichever you prefer. Or you could go for one of each.
91730 race car.
Yeah.
And a 89 491 turbo look.
Yeah, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, nice wide body. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favorite Porsche color?
Dark sea blue.
Who is your ultimate Porsche icon?
My dad.
Oh,
Well played. Well
very
played.
well.
Duh.
Your favorite track?
Bridgehampton.
To Fuchs or not to Fuchs?
Toss up. Fix. Fuchs.
Nice.
Stock or hot rod?
stock 491, hot rod something that's already been tracked.
Narrow or wide body?
Wide.
Cars and coffee or track day?
Track day.
And back seats in a 911.
Yep.
Nice. They were so varied. This is why we do it with those questions, because you got two people who are going to be running up the hill next month, and sorting a team out to get up the hill as well, and totally different. So that's exactly why we do that. That is awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely awesome.
Now David and I have to build those cars that we just said. And we'll race each other.
Wow, it sounds like, especially with the turbo look car, it sounds like David's firmly got his eyes on that.
Yeah.
It's pretty precise.
9/17/30, I'll take you on. Yeah.
There you go.
That'd be ideal. Yeah. Genuinely, Betim Berisha and obviously David Donohue, we are so chuffed to have you on Road to Redline, and we will, as we say, we'll be rooting for you all the way at Pikes Peak next month, and we'll be sure to keep our listeners updated in exactly how you get on as well. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Wildly honored to be on here. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So what do you reckon to Pikes Peak then?
I want to do it, but I'd
I want to do it.
It'll go wrong, yeah. But like we say, it's just such a different event, isn't it? I think that's the appeal for me. It's a totally different event.
I think there's lots of parallels to rally driving, even though it's all on tarmac. It's so many varying conditions and lots of things that can go wrong, ending up in trees.
I think so. And it's like I said during the chat with the guys, that it's just, you have shorter bursts over racing or circuit racing, but it's just a much higher intensity.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a complete other end of the scale, but I don't know if you guys have ever been to like Shelsey Walsh hill climb. It's one of the more kind of famous hill climbs in this country.
I do want to do it, actually. I've not been up there.
I have to say, it's great to see that the camaraderie of the grassroots, which is obviously what that is, despite Shelsey Walsh's history, is still very apparent at the top level of obviously Pikes Peak and that. And there is, it seems like there is a bit more sort of camaraderie and whatnot kind of kicking around the place. It's a little bit more kind of gentlemanly, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that is still very much apparent at the top table, as I say. But a huge coup and an honour, I think, for us to have those guys on, and we will absolutely keep people posted at home as to just how they get on, because we're rooting for them. They're taking on the big guys.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. Real sort of, what's the word? Goliath.
David versus Goliath.
David and Goliath.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So look, that was awesome. Next week, we are going to be back in the same room again. We've got a crew show, and we've got loads to talk about, to be fair.
Yeah, we've got a big list.
Has anyone else been pissing money on their cars in the last couple of weeks? So looking forward to that. Maybe there might be
save all that for next week.
Yeah. Might be a beer involved, and might even be a tear or two. It'd be nice. So we've got a crew show. We've got some topics, one of which will be like updates on our cars and what the hell's been going on there, and different bits and pieces we've been involved with. So that will be exciting.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Don't forget tickets for all of our different events and shows. Find all the details on Instagram. So you mentioned that at the top of the pod.
Good work. We have had a couple of new Patreon people, but we'll talk about them next week.
Fabulous. Till then.
Excellent. See you all soon.
You've been listening to Road to Redline, the #1 Porsche and car podcast fueled by our generous Patreons. If you'd like to join in supporting the podcast, please see patreon.com/Road to Redline and find us on Instagram.